Alrighty, guys. Tonight, I want to have a little bit of a discussion, just guitar discussion. The first topic I want to talk about for a minute here is the cheaper floating trims, the floating tremolos. Like, for you beginners out there that are getting your first Floyd guitar or floating trim equipped guitar, when you use that bar, you can't go Steve Vai on that thing. You can't grab the guitar and hold it up like this and shake the bar and do all the crazy antics that he does on his. Because the cheaper tremolos that come on those guitars, for Ibanez, for instance, since he plays Ibanez, let's do that. In 2017, they had the Ibanez Edge 3. And I've had a few Ibanez guitars that had that bridge on them. And I would do that. I would use it like Steve would do, playing Steve Vai songs along with the radio and stuff. And over the course of a year or two, doing all that abuse to it, it completely wrecked the knife edges on them. And if your knife edges get worn down, it does not hold tune whatsoever. There is a little bit of a fix to that. You can put some graphite on the knife edges of your bridge and stick it back on. That will work to get it holding tune again for a little while. But what I've heard from the guitar tech that taught me how to work on a Floyd, you would have to do what he called major surgery on your bridge, which is you take a file and take off that worn material on the knife edge on both sides. And then you put your bridge back on, and then you restring it up. You will have to reset your bridge angle to get it back in that sweet spot, and you'll have to reset your intonation again, and probably readjust your neck. If you like low action, you'll have to get that neck angle right. So just keep that in mind for beginners out there. Like my $800 Satriani, my blue one that I've got, has the S02, and it's the same, same quality, maybe a little bit better, but I wouldn't trust it to major abuse on the bar. I'm probably going to wreck that thing playing a bunch of Satriani tunes and Metallica, diving the bar like Kirk does. But maybe it'll hold up. We'll see. And I'll do a follow-up video because I haven't had the guitar a year yet. So after a year of owning it, I will do an update review of it and let you guys know if I encounter any kind of crazy issues. So that's the first topic. The next topic is strings. And I'm an Ernie Ball guy for strings. I like Ernie Ball on all my stuff. And I did use Martin Darko electrics way back when I first started playing. And those strings were just so terrible. They would rust quickly, they'd die, lose their tone, they'd break on me. You put those things on a Floyd Rose, and you yank that bar, it's gonna pop. That high E or the B. And I tried, this is one weird thing about Ernie Ball. I tried a set of their Primo Slinky, which is 9.5 to 44. And I had them on a Rusty Cooley Dean, made in Korea, with an awesome trim on it. And I was playing the Master of Puppets solo for a couple friends, and they were watching me, and they were like, "Whoa, dude, that guitar's cool, it sounds good." And I pulled the bar and shook it a little bit like Kirk does at the end of the solo. And my high E and high B strings both broke at the bridge and hit one of my friends in the arm. She felt it hit her. And I was like, okay, not using those anymore. And then there's Diodero. I've used quite a few sets of them, and I like those strings. They don't last as long as Ernie Ball for me. Could just be my sweat in my hands. But here's the weird thing about them. On my Satrianis, they both have Diodero strings on them. They sound and feel on those two guitars way better than Ernie Ball does on any Ibanez I've put them on. So those two are going to stay Diodero. I'm really happy with those. And I got a couple sets of NYXL, the new ones, for my blue one from a buddy for Christmas. Can't wait to put those things on it after I kill this next set that I have of the regulars and try those things out. Because they say they're pretty good. I've heard a lot of people raving about those strings, like Nita Strauss, that plays with Alice Cooper. She uses those 10 to 46 tuned down a half step, and she makes them sound killer. So yeah, I'm going to keep using the Diodero on the Satch, on both of them. Then that's another topic. Let's cover that real quick. We need us some more female guitarists. We need you guys out there, man, because, you know, the guitar world is primarily male dominated. And most of them down here in my area where I live at, they're all like, look at how cool I am. I can play 1,000 miles an hour and all that. We need some chicks, man, that can come in here and show us they can do it just as good as we can do it. Because like Nita Strauss and Courtney Cox that used to play in the Iron Maidens, world-class shredders. Freaking amazing. And I was like, we need us more chick guitarists out there, man. I would love to see a girl rocking on stage just as hard as the dudes that are in her band with her. It's just cool to me. So, ladies out there, if you're thinking about getting into guitar, but you don't know how your boyfriend might accept you as a guitar player if he plays, or a room full of guys, do it anyway, man. Get you a guitar, learn to play, and maybe you can show your boyfriend up a little bit. So go for that. That would be awesome. And let's see what else we can cover. Okay, here's an interesting one. What is it like to be a 7-string and 8-string player down here in the South where I live at? Okay, so in my area, a lot of the players around here are country pickers and bluegrass players. And I've brought my 7-string to a local shop down here just to have it looked over when I first got it, to make sure the neck was good and all this, you know, all that good stuff. And there's 2 older guys working back there as the guitar techs. And they get my case out and they unzip it and open it. And they're looking at it. And then the guy's looking down like this, with his eyebrows raised up. And he kind of cocks his head like that. Then he looks up at me and he goes, I have never seen anything like this. He was looking at it like it was some sort of alien creature. And he got to asking me about it, you know, what is this whole extra string thing? And I was like, well, it's apparently you got 2 B strings and you got 2 E strings. And I'm just learning 7-string. I got this one on a budget, you know, just to have something to mess around on. And he wouldn't even check it out for me. He was like, I don't even know where to start on this. And I've since learned it's just another guitar. When you go to make your adjustments on your neck and your bridge for intonation or your action, it's just another guitar. And then I brought my 8-string over for a couple buddies to check out. And their dad was the guitar tech many years ago. And he was like, oh, let me see it, man. I can maybe get it set up for you. I can do you a little setup work on it or whatever. He opens it. And he looks down at it and sees all these strings laid out before him in that bridge on there, on the Harley Benton model, and the slanted nut and the slanted pickups. And he goes, "This is just getting ridiculous." He was like, "You really think you need all this to play good? You don't need all this crap. All you need is a good acoustic, or a good Les Paul, or a good Stratocaster." If you want to blow your buddies' dad's minds that play guitar, take a 7 or 8 string in there to them and have them look at it. Can't wait to, see some guy like that look at a 9 string like they have now. Even the 9 strings, dude, they blow my mind. Like, holy jeez. Like, that's one question I have. Do you really need that? And I picked up an Agile 9 string at Guitar Center where I live. And it was like this nebula green burst. It was pretty. Very pretty guitar. And the neck looked like 4 2x4s glued together. And I grab it by the neck and I start to pick it up, and it weighed more than my Les Paul does. And my Les Paul's about 10 pounds. So yeah, if you live down in the South and you don't have any metal players around, like in my area, there's not very many of us, and you bring out something like a 7 or 8 string, they're going to look at you like you've lost your mind. It's fantastic to see the looks on their faces. But that's my thoughts on that one. Now let's go back to the Floyd Rose thing, man, and guitar companies. So I've owned, as I've mentioned before, lots of Ibanez guitars that were made in Indonesia with their floating trims. I've owned a few Jacksons. I've owned a slew of ESP guitars. Schecter, I haven't owned very many of Schecters because I've had 3 of them my whole life. And all 3 of them had this weird issue where the tunematic bridge would move side to side like this under string tension. I was like, that's incredibly weird. I don't know why it could be doing that. They were the Omen 6 strings. I had 3 of those. One black, one blue, and then another black one. But, the Indonesia quality, a little bit, it's hit or miss. And then on the Jacksons, the Jackson stuff I tend to stay away from now. Because I bought one that was sunburst. I only paid like $189 for the guitar. And I played on it, put me a new set of strings on it after I'd killed the factory ones. And it was great. Great guitar. Hell, tuned great. Played good, sounded really good. Even with the Jackson labeled pickups in it. And then I go for my 3rd string change. And it had a floating trim. And I get all the strings off of it, block the bridge, or I could clean it up, oil the fretboard, that good stuff. And I start putting my strings back on. I got all of them put on. I got the high E on, the B on, the G on, then I go to put the D string on. And what you do when you restring a Floyd, you clip your ball end off of the string. And there's a little block in the saddle. That block moves back just a little bit for you to stick the end of the string down in, and then you tighten that lock underneath the bridge, and it pushes that block forward to where it stops and holds your string in there. And I was turning the screw, and it felt like it had reached its point to where it no longer wants to go. And I did just a small push forward on the wrench, just to kind of snug it up. And the threads inside of that saddle stripped. And it was a brand new guitar. And I was like, what? 2 string changes in, and I've already had this happen? So what did I do? I took it to, I put strings on it. And the D string, I didn't cut the ball end off, stuck it through the saddle, up to the headstock, and the ball stopped it, kept it in there where it would tune up. And I got it in tune the best I could, and then took it and traded it off. And then let me tell you the story of an Ibanez Rg I bought one time. I bought an RG 350DX from a local shop down here where I live. And I didn't know at this time that the bridge is supposed to be flat like this. I thought it was like a Floyd Rose looks where it's kind of kicked up. And so I put all the strings on. This is before I even knew that you need to do one string at a time. I took them all off, put the strings on it, tuned it up, got that bridge hacked up there. I was like, that looks good, pretty cool. I noticed my bar wouldn't dive the way Satriani's would or Steve Vai's would. And I was like, maybe it's just because they play, Japan made. And this one's not that. And I kept that guitar like that for 8 months, a year, something like that. And I'm playing one day, and I start hearing this sound, this cracking sound. And I was like, oh man, my speaker and my amp must be crackling on me. And I noticed my strings are dropping tuning as of late. And I was like, that's strange. Maybe it's just getting old, getting wear on it. No. What happened was those 2 screws in the back for the springs unthread themselves. And I'm playing, and the screws came out of the guitar, the springs fell, I heard them hit the back plate, and the bridge came off the posts and almost slapped me right in my cording hand. And I'm standing there looking at the guitar, and the bridge is dangling off the neck, swinging back and forth. I was like, oh my god, this has never happened before. So I took dowel pins and stuck them in those holes with some Elmer's school glue and tightened the springs in to where the bridge looked half decent, and I got rid of it. And I found out from a carpenter after I had told him this story, and he said, putting those dowel pins in those holes and rethreading the screws, it's probably even better than it was from the factory now. You could keep that, and it would be perfect. You wouldn't have any issues, but I can't say I blame you for trading it off because you just don't trust it. So that's one of my guitar uh-oh moments. If that was in a YouTube guitar fails compilation, I would love for you guys to have seen that, man. That was hilarious. And I bet that video would probably get thousands of views. But the last thing I want to talk about is this red guitar, my Joe Satriani, that I got, that had the bad frets. This is the first one that arrived to me, with the broken Sustainiac switch and the bad frets. And so I was going to experiment. I put the bar on, and I was like, wow, the bar is really tight. It's hard to get in there. And I was like, I'm still on the phone with my buddy at this point, and I was like, damn, man, I've never had a bar be this difficult to get into the hole. And I play on it, and had to reset the intonation of the low E string, because the string lock would hit the body when you pull the bar backwards to make the bridge go this way. But I had the bar on it. I'm playing on it to see if you can hear that fret buzz through the amp, which you could. And I was like, well, it looks like I'm going to have to send it back. So I'm getting everything together to put it back in its original packaging. And I go to take the bar off. I didn't know that the bar from the factory, when you get them new, they're really stiff. So I grabbed the bar like I've seen Steve Vai do live and pull it off, and the whole bridge came off the posts. Luckily, I knew how to put that back on. I mean, when it came off, it pulled the springs out of the sustain block. I was like, Jesus Christ! And I told my buddy, I'm really gonna have to call him now because this should not happen. This should not be even. This should have never even got past the quality control people. But that was just probably my error. But yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about tonight. Just some weird incidents that I've had with guitar. And I've heard of people. Let's talk about Gibson for just a minute here. So, I've heard of a few people back in the early 2000s that had bought Gibson SG standards. They're black or cherry red. And they'd be playing those guitars. And in the early 2000s, the whole drop tuning thing was popular. And they would put ridiculously heavy gauge strings on them. And I had heard stories. I don't know how true any of this is, what I'm about to say, but this is just what I had heard. That the glue for the neck would somehow soften and cause its hold to be very unstable. And I've heard people say that Gibson SG's necks would come off while they're playing their guitars. And I've owned 2 Les Pauls, 3 Les Pauls, 2 studios, and this standard that's here with me now. I've never had that problem, no matter what gauge strings I put on them. One's a 2006, the Les Paul Standard. I had a 2011 Les Paul Studio and a 2007 Les Paul Studio. And they all were perfect guitars, great instruments. And that's another, let's end it with a sad guitar story. I was working at Burger King back in 2007. And I go to my local pawn shop. And we're looking at the guitars, me and my dad. And they have this Gibson case in the floor. And my dad's like, look at this Gibson case. That might fit your Epiphone that you use. You know? It might say Gibson, but you'll have the combination lock and all that good stuff. And he grabs a hold of it and picks it up. And he was like, something's in this. So we get it in the floor. We open it. And it's a 2007 worn brown Les Paul Studio for $750. And I immediately, do you guys have a layaway plan? And they were like, yeah, we do. You pay so much down, and then what you can every 2 weeks. Stick it on layaway. And I'm on cloud 9, getting my first Gibson. Never owned one. And it took me 3 months of working at Burger King to get enough money up to finally make my last payment on it and bring her home. And I kept that guitar for 5 years. Played the hell out of that thing. I loved that guitar. And then some things happened, and I got hard up for some money, and I had to sell it. So I paid, back in 2007, used, after tax, it was $802. Not bad at all for a Les Paul Studio. And when I took that thing to the same place I bought it from to sell it, you know what they gave me for it? $450. I was sick. And it haunted me for so many years. And then I got that over with, got a hold of that Les Paul Studio from 2011 in warm black. Bought it from a guy that had it for sale. And I planned on keeping it. But I'm on Marketplace, Facebook Marketplace. And there's a guy that has a White Zombie Kirk Hammett ESP LTD that he wants to trade for a Gibson Les Paul. And I had my standard too. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to contact this guy and see if he'll go for this. And he was like, bring it over and let me look at it. He lived literally 30 minutes away from me. He's like, I'll probably trade you. Just let me see it. And we looked at the guitars, together. He played the Les Paul. I played the Kirk Hammett. And he was like, yeah, man, I'll trade you. And I was like, wow, got me a Kirk Hammett LTD White Zombie $1,200 guitar. Awesome. And like a dummy, I took that and traded it for the Rusty Cooley Dean. And it's a great guitar. It is. My dad's got it now. I'll let him have it. But it had the Dunlap 6,000 frets. Really tall frets. And for me, like, it was just so uncomfortable. I loved the original Floyd low pro trim on it. I loved the EMG 8185s that were in it. Everything was great about it, except for those really tall frets. It was just uncomfortable for me to play on it. And so now that's another thing. Like scalloped fretboards is a whole different animal. I don't know how Yngwie does it. And I got used to playing these medium frets on my Satrianis, the 6105s. The necks on those Joe Satrianis have ruined me. Like, I don't want to play an ESP again. I don't want to play a Jackson anymore. I don't want to touch a Schecter. For me, you guys might have different opinions on this, and let me know if you see this video. For me, Ibanez has the best feeling necks out there. I mean, even on their cheapest guitars, the necks are still good. They're not great like the Prestige. That high performance Wizard profile, yeah, buddy, that's where it's at. Super thin, super flat. You can shred all day. And then the Satrianis, they have his JS profile, dude. You can shred it up the way that Malmsteen would, and it still feels comfortable. Or you can play the way Joe plays. And just, finesse and be really like super chordy and getting some good chords coming out, good melodies, and it all feels great. That profile has ruined me, but I love it. And then there's one more thing. This will be the end of it. Let's talk about shred guitar for a minute. There's a lot of people out there that watch these shredder dudes, like Jason Becker, Malmsteen, Petrucci, Paul Gilbert, and Rusty Cooley, and they watch them play all that fast, crazy stuff, and they're like, it's just a bunch of noise. Now, yes, to a certain point, eventually it all does sound like noise. They're just playing a bunch of mindless notes as fast as they can. Do you guys think shred guitar is just a bunch of racket? And do you, like me, do you prefer feeling in the player? Like Petrucci, he may be really fast, but he plays with a lot of feeling and emotion in his playing. Now, Satriani, you wouldn't really call him a shredder. He's a crossover guitarist. He plays really fast, but he's not crazy fast, and a lot of his licks are blues-based. And the emotion that he can convey in his music is out of this world. That's what I prefer in a player. I prefer emotion, playing with feeling. When you hit that bend or you hit a fast passage, you make somebody feel it. Now, Malmsteen, I can listen to for an hour or two, and then I'll start to get bored of it. And Paul Gilbert, I can listen to him. I can listen to 4 or 5 albums, and then I'll be like, okay, time for something else. Still a great guitar player. I still love his music. But Petrucci and Satch and Steve Vai, I can listen to all day long. Just because of the emotion and the feeling and the mood that they can put across when they play. So let me know what you guys think about the shred world. And let me know if you think it's just a bunch of noise. Because speed is cool. It is. And being able to play at the level of some of these players, you're going to have to play for many, many years and put a lot of hours and blood, sweat, and tears into that guitar to be able to achieve that level of mastery. But let me know what you guys think, because at the end of the day, we all play what we play. And if you're not a shredder and you like to play just power chords or regular old cowboy chords or riffs, if you're a rhythm guitarist and you like to play riffs, at the end of the day, whatever you like to play, that's all that matters. Don't worry about these people that think you have to be super technical all the time and you got to do a bunch of sweep picking and, scale runs, tapping, all that stuff. It's flashy, it looks cool, but is anybody really feeling what you're putting across to them when you're doing that? So at the end of the day, everybody play what you play, because as long as it's good enough for you, that's all that counts. Everyone have a great night. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.